IHI Books presents Bertin's River Part 5, a novel by Jan Gary Cantav. Background music by Fula, featuring my late friend Tito, composer, singer, and guitarist.
Chapter 14, Baby Moses. Many weeks have passed since the incidents involving T. Claude, Altador, Idalia, and the river. Life in Bertin apparently resumed its ordinary course. Hungry kids, adults with no jobs, young men and women fighting to survive, the sound of motorcycles going up and down on the rocky roads, bony dogs, trash-eating pigs, no birds in sight, a tent city, half-finished houses, and a litany of misery. A few young men dressed like thugs, fresh from Chicago, marijuana spewing out of their dreamy eyes. Where do they go for rehab when rehab is needed? Everybody is selling something: large chunks of wood, used aluminum bottles, candies, fruits, and crafts. The rising smell of food cooked by makeshift five-star restaurants on the sidewalks has become a sign that it is noon. I started to really get accustomed to my country. With nothing salient happening in Bertin, I had more time to savor the little details of my new town. Some things were completely out of the ordinary to me. For example, I do not remember ever seeing dogs chewing on sugarcane. The other day, I witnessed just that. Another dog that belongs to one of my immediate neighbors regularly feasts on mango peels. I do not recall seeing dogs eating those kinds of stuff when I was a child growing up in Haiti. There might be some Darwinism going on here. There was nothing new in the news. The presidential elections may or may not happen. The temporary president may or may not leave office on the date he was supposed to. People on all sides of the political spectrum defended their candidates on radio and television shows and social media. The only breaking news was that some tropical storm was forming in the Atlantic Ocean. This kind of natural disaster always means the same thing: rain, rain, and more rain. And those who live day by day, who can't afford to buy food and water to last for at least a few days, start to pray to all the saints, not for the rain to go away. They can't afford this kind of gigantic faith, but they pray to hopefully find a bon prochain, good Samaritan, willing to give them a few dollars to go to the stores before the shelves are completely empty. The prayers are fervent indeed, but it is not easy for the saints to utilize local Samaritans only to answer so many supplications in a timely manner. When 90% of the people in town pray the same prayer, it is hard to satisfy everyone. Often, the saints must go out of their way to suggest that a few calls are placed to contact the faraway neighbors living in the U.S. or elsewhere in the diaspora. Call your friend, your cousin, your sister who lives abroad, would suggest the saints, and although he or she may accuse you of being a lazy, lavish, opportunistic bloodsucker when he or she learns about the coming storm, some money may come your way, but there is a risk. You may get nothing and waste your time, your dignity, and some of your precious minutes on your Digicel or Natcom prepaid phone services. The storm spared Haiti, but it came close enough to cause a lot of rain for 2 long days. Heavy at times, the rain washed away a few houses too close to the river. It made no death and no serious damages in Bertin or elsewhere. When it rains for so long, in many households, this translates as days of hunger with no hope of finding anything to eat. Before the wind started, Anna, one of the many young single moms in Bertin, called her baby daddy to ask for emergency help to survive the storm. She placed the call at the worst possible time. He was with a new babe and had to be rude and loud to avoid trouble with his new chick, a gorgeous, jealous, and insecure young lady. He had not scored yet and did not want to jeopardize his chance. He told Anna that his situation was not better than hers and hung up before she could explain to him that the boy was him too and that he was also responsible for his well-being. He left Anna and her baby to ride the storm alone on an empty stomach. The baby was crying in the background when Anna called. That's all he does. The irritating noise he was making did not tip his father towards coming to the rescue. Instead, it was annoying and even compromising. This deadbeat dad did not want his fresh catch, the young lady he was with, to think about the possibility of being one day like Anna, stuck with a baby to raise alone. Anna had no cousins, uncles, or friends in the U.S. or elsewhere in the diaspora. She had no one to turn to. She was stuck. A few years ago, this would have been a different story. She didn't have a baby. Her butt was still up in the air and round like a beach ball. Men were tripping over each other to spend money on her. The contact list on her prepaid phone had at least 10 men willing to drop everything to rescue her in time of need. For the past year, her life has become more and more difficult. She stopped attending school at a young age. Her mother could not afford the tuition fees. She could barely read and write. She had a child to feed and no real job, no skills, and her body had started to show signs of giving up. The lack of proper nutrition and the constant struggle to stay afloat had a toll on her general health. She breastfed her baby for the first 6 months of his life and was forced to stop. The baby could no longer find milk from her depleted breasts. Science tells us that a breastfeeding woman should eat about 30% more calories than a non-breastfeeding woman to keep up. She had days when the only meal was a grain of salt she kept under her tongue and some sugary water to drink during the day. An old mirror on the wall reflected an image of her bare chest. She burst into tears. 2 wet socks were hanging where there used to be 2 provocative and luscious watermelons just a few years ago. Anna resented her baby. She wished she had never met his dad. This child was the reason her life was falling apart. He, too, was not doing well. He started progressing like the other kids in his age group, but soon after his mom's milk dried out, he started getting more sick days than healthy ones. He could no longer stand on his own. He stopped babbling. Everyone could see that there was something wrong with this child. Anna and her boy live in a shack they share with spiders, palmetto bugs, ants, lots of ants, mice, and even the occasional stray cats that sometimes come in uninvited to get shelter. The walls are either cracked or crumbled, depending on where one looks. Anna tried her best to keep it clean, but overwhelmed by the weight of life, she let go, and her small place began to resemble a house that had just been hit by a hurricane. The thick cloth of a tent she got from Yele, Haiti is part roof and part door of her house. It used to be beige. It now has more brown areas than beige ones. With such a meager accommodation, Anna could not even sell her body for a price lucrative enough to meet her daily needs. Out of desperation, she tried to enter the shadowy business and had no success. Only a few old men were among her clientele. They came to her when they were too broke to afford her competition. To stay afloat, Anna, like most people in Bertin, had to have a little business. She tried prostitution, but that did not work for her. With a child on her back who could not even stand on his own, Anna got by selling empty glass bottles. She usually retrieved them from the trash, washed them in the river, and sold them for 20 pieces for 10 Haitian gourds. The people who make medicinal concoctions were her best clients. It's not easy to make a living by making so little money when a loaf of bread costs at least 50 gourds. People who knew Anna well noticed that she had changed a lot, not only physically, but her mind was no longer the same. She became more and more withdrawn. She talked more and more to herself and began neglecting her baby. She sometimes left him alone for long periods. The rain started as predicted and lasted 2 long days. The second day of nonstop rain washed away the little bit of sanity Anna had left. She became very irritated. Her baby was crying for food. Finding food in the middle of the storm was an impossible task. The rain, the crying baby, and the noises she was already hearing inside her head were too much to handle. Life was spinning out of control. She could no longer take it. Her baby had not eaten for more than a full day. He could hardly cry. He was too weak, too dehydrated to shed tears. Anna, too, had not eaten. She, too, was too hypoglycemic to think straight. Around 4 in the morning on the second day of the storm, the rain and the wind were raging, the river was clashing against the bridge, and the baby was crying. Above all, the noises in Anna's head were becoming louder and more distinct. She could hear them clearly telling her to end her son's misery as an act of love. Her heart started beating stronger, faster, and a bit erratic. Life cornered Anna in her little room. She felt like a wild animal must feel when trapped. The room started spinning faster and faster in Anna's mind. Her maternal instinct refused to succumb to the dictates of the voices in her head. The voices got louder and louder, and they proposed a compromise that Anna found reasonable. She grabbed her baby by the arm, gave him a long last look, and they got out in the middle of the rain. She carried him in her arms like she used to do when he was a newborn. There was more wind than rain in the rain. The splashing rain on her face prevented her from opening her eyes fully. The boy never stopped crying during the whole ordeal. When she arrived near the river, the water had already surpassed the height of the small bridge. She threw her baby boy into the river as advised by the voices in her head and prepared to take the plunge herself. That was the compromise. Mother and child would dive into the river and ride away to a better place. However, the voices stopped as soon as the baby left her hands. She got a strange feeling of well-being, freedom, and even joy. She no longer had the desire or the strength to jump. Anna burst into tears. She stood in the rain, right by the river that was taking her boy to a better place. She cried her soul out for a few minutes. Her frail, trembling body could be mistaken for a ghost. No one in his right mind would be standing outside by the raging river during such a powerful storm. No voices were talking to her inside her head, for the first time in a long time. Anna returned to her hut and dried herself. The voices slowly came back. She spent the rest of the night wide awake in a corner of the room, facing the reality of what she had just done. The rain stopped for good around 8 a.m. The Bertins' residents started to get out of their domiciles to check on each other. The last 2 days, no one could come out. The animals, too, stayed hidden during the rain. They, too, were starving and were out there trying to get something to eat. The weather was gorgeous. In contrast, here and there, water puddles large and small reminded everyone of the ordeal they had to endure for the past 2 days. A few tree branches were also part of the landscape. People started to get out little by little, and almost everyone had a unique story to share about the storm. A pink pig suddenly became very agitated on a pile of trash near the river. This pile of rubbish was its newly claimed territory. A woman noticed the unusual behavior of the pig and got a closer look at what was happening. "It's a baby," she cried. She was shaking. "Shoo! Shoo! Shoo!" she yelled with all her strength as she tried to scare away the pig. A young man realized what was happening. The pig was not inclined to share its territory with the baby. It was readying itself to fight. The young man knew the baby was in imminent danger. He ran towards the pig and kicked its rear with all his strength. The pig pushed a strident, scratchy noise and resigned itself to give up its territory and meal. It was 3 against 1. The baby boy moved a little. "He is alive!" yelled the lady a second time. Weak, cold, hypoglycemic, and dehydrated, the baby could hardly move. In less than a minute, a small crowd had formed on the side of the river where the child was found. The woman who spotted the baby boy first claimed him to be hers. She instantly affectionately loved this frail baby with beautiful, piercing eyes. She picked him off the pile of trash, wrapped him in her wide skirt, and took him home. Bertin is a small town where everybody knows everybody. It didn't take long to identify Anna as the child's mother. Anna was glad to know that her baby was alive. Her sense of relief was unfortunately disturbed by the fear of retributions when the people became aware that she was the woman who abandoned her child in the storm. A man who knew Anna well enough to recognize her baby was the first to point the finger at her as the deranged mother of this innocent baby boy. After ensuring that the baby found by the river was Anna's, a call to action was the next step. Nobody had the faintest idea to inquire about the baby's father. Haiti is well known for that biblical miracle where women make babies through the Immaculate Conception process and raise them alone through the similarly miraculous concept of the widow of Zarephath. The crowd decided to pay a visit to Anna. At this time, the crowd has grown to be about 40 to 50 souls, a sizable group for a small village. They headed towards her hut. Their emotions were effervescent. Men and women, mostly the women, were discussing what to do with Anna. They were deliberating on the fly on what to do with her, marching like an army ready for a fight. Some people wanted to kill her, judging that she must be demon-possessed to commit such a horrific crime. Others were more forgiving. Those who were for the death sentence were the noisiest and fastest, and were at the head of the band. Anna lived close to the river. It did not take long to get there. If not for a tree that fell on the road, forcing them to take a detour, they would have reached her home in just a few minutes. When the rowdy crowd arrived at Anna's dilapidated hut, one of the women who decided that Anna must pay with her life for this odious crime, armed with an empty rum Barbancourt bottle she grabbed on the road, smashed it on a rock, and jumped to the front of the group. She then kicked Anna's shoddy door open and entered alone. This woman, well known for not wearing her skirt for beautiful fabric, wanted to be the first to give Anna what she deserved. She would be forever remembered in Bertin for being the woman who rid the place of a devilish woman who left her own baby to die on a rainy night on a pile of trash. She was one of the many who were convinced that such a crime could only be punished by immediate death. Anna seemed undisturbed by the riot outside. She did not even notice the humongous, sweaty woman who invaded her space. She did not even see that she was armed with a sharp, jagged, broken bottle. Anna was out of this world. She was pacing back and forth, crying, sniffing, and talking to herself. The voices in her head were so loud that, at the time, Anna thought anyone nearby could easily hear them. She could not understand what the voices were saying, but they were getting louder and louder. In a moment of lucidity, Anna realized that she was not alone. Instinctively, she jumped to a corner of her room to get refuge, covered her face with her hands, and yelled like an animal being dragged to the slaughterhouse. Her aggressor was taken aback by the degree of despair in which Anna lived. As much as she wanted to give her the coup de grace, her animosity towards her changed into compassion and empathy. She could not believe a human being could live in such dire conditions. The woman was no psychiatrist, but it was clear that Anna had severe mental health issues and needed urgent help. She dropped her improvised weapon, the large piece of a broken bottle, and exited the room. "Leave her alone," she said to the mob, shaking her head, like trying to shake off her feelings. "Leave her alone. I think she is crazy. Really crazy." A few curious people peek into Anna's room before leaving. She was still coiled in a corner, mumbling. Anna's home had the distinct smell and look of extreme and prolonged misery. There were old bottles all over the place and a few rags on the floor. The only piece of furniture was a small table, too shaky to stand on its own, that was leaning against the wall. There was no bed, no chairs, no food, no nothing. Anna was obviously mentally disturbed and needed help, not condemnation. They left her alone to her fate. If you ask anyone in Bertin what happened to the child, you would be told that the baby was abandoned in a pile of trash by her mother. But you would know what happened if you were in the little hut at 4 a.m. In the middle of the storm, Anna grabbed her crying baby, dragged him outside, walked the few steps separating her from the river, and threw him in the tumultuous waters. The boy was 2 years old. He could not walk, he could not talk, could not stand on his own. He had no reason to be alive. The voice in her head made that argument over and over, and finally Anna succumbed. The consensus was that the baby was abandoned in a pile of trash. Still, one disagreed. An old retired teacher living alone in a small house by the river. He swears that he saw Anna throw something in the river. Now he knows that this was her handicapped baby. No one wanted to believe him, even when he remarked that Anna lived on the west side of the river and the baby was found in a pile of trash on the east side. He argued that it is very unlikely, or even impossible, for Anna to walk through the storm, cross the river, and deposit the child on the other side a few yards down. She must have thrown the child in the river, and the river carried him to the other side, to the pile of trash. The river managed to anchor the baby in a pile of trash to save his life. The baby boy was saved by the river. After all, the baby's new name is Moses, which should tell a lot about what really happened. But who cares? The story was already set in stone in people's minds, and nothing, not even new evidence, could change it.
Background music by Fula, featuring my late friend Tito, composer, singer, and guitarist.
End of Part 5.